Does this scenario seem a little familiar to you?
Hey man, that's a really cool bike you got there.
Hey, thanks man, I appreciate it.
Sweet, yeah, I ride a 1987 Ninja 250.
Ooh, that's a great bike. Yeah, is that your first?
Oh yeah, it's a ton of fun. You mind if I take this one for a spin?
Oh, how long have you been on that 250?
Oh, I've been on it about a month.
Yeah, I don't know if that'd be the best idea for this bike, yeah.
Well, why not? They're both sport bikes, right? All the same plastic, same ergos?
Yeah, but this one is got 200 horsepower. It's a real proper squid missile type of thing. It's really, really fast. You might get yourself into a little bit of trouble if you gave it a shot.
Well, what about that one over there?
Well, let's go take a look. No, I think this thing would be a little bit more your speed. Yeah, this is actually quite a different motorcycle than that one I was sitting on.
Oh, well, I can't really tell the difference, but maybe you could walk me through it.
Yeah, let's give it a shot.
On today's episode of Yami Noob, find out how you can avoid embarrassment and quickly identify what is and is not a true thoroughbred squid missile.
Alrighty guys, so we're starting today's video off with ergonomics. I think obviously this bike makes a lot more power than the VFR, but the most important thing in my opinion is ergonomics. And also, in case you forgot, this is our giveaway R1. Click the link down below, find out how you can win it. Spite, if you would please mount up on the R1 and we can show everybody at home.
Absolutely.
So, the first thing you notice here is how high up his butt is on the seat. So the R1 features about a 32-inch seat height. The pegs are up really high up off the ground too, and his bars are way down low. And the reason you want that is so you can get at a really tucked in, committed racing position. You can see his head can get right in the bubble here, and he can really attack and be aggressive on this motorcycle. But Spite, it feels pretty uncomfortable, huh?
Yeah, I took it for a quick rip before we started filming here, and the one thing that's always shocking is how you feel like you're perched on top of the front wheel when you ride this. No matter what you do, you can't escape the fact that you're leaned forward 100% of the time. You can sit way back up here when you're cruising, but you still have to reach way far to get that throttle, and it's not a comfortable place to be, but then it wasn't designed to be comfortable.
Yeah, so that's what we mean when we say something is committed. It means he's committed to being in this position and you can't really get around it.
There's a lot going on in the cockpit that the VFR just doesn't have. So another thing you look down and see are these big orange things on top of the suspension. They're for preload, rebound, compression. That's just another thing that you don't see on the Interceptor. Now that's because the Interceptor's older, but this is just, it's a lot for you to be thinking about. The average rider, you're probably not gonna need it. You don't need to know how much brake pressure you're putting on the front of the suspension. You don't need to know how the weight is shifting around. You're just riding a motorcycle.
But now let's look at what the VFR kind of looks like. So now we're taking a look at the VFR. We're gonna talk about the ergonomics here. Spite, if you would please mount up on your wonderful steed. Now, I'm sure as you guys can already clearly tell, his hands are much higher up on the bars here, his feet is lower, and his butt is actually a little bit lower here on the seat as well. And this is what we call the rider triangle. It's the relationship between your butt, your feet, and your hands. And that's what's really gonna tell you how comfortable or how not comfortable a motorcycle is. How do you feel on that thing?
I mean, it's night and day. As opposed to feeling like I'm perched way over that front wheel, I feel like I'm sitting in the motorcycle, right? And another thing is when you get down, crouched down like this, it just doesn't feel like it's made for it, because it's not. You can also just sit and cruise with one hand here, holding it nice and comfortable, upright, which means that you could be on the motorcycle for a lot longer.
And that's something you guys could check out as well online. There's a great site called cycleergos.com. We'll link it down below, and you can actually see the ergonomics of any different motorcycle that you want. And you can see how much more aggressive something like the R1 is versus the VFR with the little standard stick figure that's actually your same size. So the beginner rider might take a look at two red, fast, cool sounding sport bikes and think they look and sound and basically are the same, but upon closer inspection, we can see very key differences. So let's take a look at the VFR and where we spot those. Spite?
So the first thing, starting at the tail here, is you see that I have the fender just in place, and I'm leaving it there because I want to keep water and gunk under the bike. You know, it doesn't look very good when I just have this tail because I also lose a lot of functionality. I can't put panniers on there anymore. Moving forward, we have the passenger pegs, which are the mounting point for the exhaust here. Another thing you see, we have the Honda case here, but that's actually the only visible engine case cover in the whole bike. Everything else is completely wrapped up in the fairings, and you see there are fewer relief cuts to let air in and out of the bike.
And the other thing I wanted to point out as well is right over here, these bars are actually raised up higher off of the fork tubes over here. You wouldn't see that on a super proper committed race bike, as we actually have one right over here in the form of the R1.
So now that we've walked through my VFR, why don't you take us through what is different on the R1?
Happy to do so. So the first thing you'll notice on the R1 is it's got way more aggressive cuts and inserts all through the body here. If you look, this entire frame here is cut out to show the engine, show a little bit more, get some more airflow in there. It's got these really cool advanced kind of aerodynamic things going on here. And the next thing you'll notice is compared to Spite's huge storage capacity, look how tiny this tail is. You got nothing here. You can barely put a cell phone in the back of this thing. You'll notice as well, the pegs are knurled and up high. His are rubber. The seat is much higher as well. And then if you make your way over here towards the suspension, you can see that we have actual clip-ons. These are clipped right at the fork tubes. They're not raised up higher over here. And you can see the jewel-like adjustable suspension that a real sport bike comes with. So if you take a closer look, you can really start to see just how different these motorcycles are.
So I walked us through what you see when you sit on the R1. Now this is my bike. You're not super familiar with it. You're a little bit more familiar with the crazy race setup over there. Why don't you sit down and tell me what you immediately notice about the technology on this motorcycle?
Sure. So when I mount up on this, the first thing I notice is the seating position. Honestly, that was the very first thing I thought of when I first sat down. But the first thing I noticed as well is you just have like maybe 3 or 4 controls here. You've got a kill switch, you've got a starter, you've got high beam, low beam, and that's it. It's a very simple motorcycling experience. Here in the dash, you got a big tachometer. I'm seeing the fork tubes are a little bit smaller, non-adjustable. Got these nice bar risers here, and it just seems like a nice, comfy place to spend an afternoon on, but it doesn't seem like it's designed to destroy a racetrack, certainly not.
Yeah. I would like to finally point out here that we don't have a TFT display. We've got just a big sweeping analog tachometer and just 2 little itty bitty LCD screens that tell you the very basics. You have speed, you have miles, you have your gas tank indicator, which you don't see on the R1, but you also see engine temp, but really nothing more. It's very simple in what it tells you. It only tells you the very few things you need to know to really ride. And honestly, you don't even need to know what the engine temperature is when you're out on the street.
So another point we wanted to make today is weight. Even though the R1 looks like a chunky kind of muscular motorcycle, it's actually pretty light for the kind of power it makes. This thing comes in at about 440 pounds, and that's due to the fact that every single nut and bolt that Yamaha put on this thing was designed to be as lightweight as possible. So nothing was spared in the pursuit of lightness for this motorcycle, and it's pretty evident in the way that it handles and feels going down the road. But I don't think we can say the same for the VFR, right?
No, we really can't. I mean, starting at the tail, there's just so much here that you don't see there. And then moving forward, everything in here, all the bolts are steel. Whenever they needed to use something to fasten, they just went with whatever they had because they're not making any sacrifices in terms of performance here. Now, what that does amount to is an extra 100 pounds on the motorcycle. And despite its sleek exterior, it really doesn't handle like this does. You can really feel that extra 100 pounds when you dip it into a corner, bring it back up.
So the other thing we do want to talk about today is price. We picked up this 2019 Yamaha R1 for about $16,500. Now that was a holdover from last year, and you'd be pretty hard to find a brand spanking new leader bike for less than $20,000 nowadays. Now why is that? Well, it's because it uses all kinds of crazy exotic materials. You got aluminum, titanium, magnesium, all kinds of stuff, all this electronics on it too. It's just going to come at a bit more of a premium, but I don't think we can say the same for the VFR.
No, this is a 2014 bike here, so it's a little bit older, but even in its heyday, it was only selling for about $12,000. 13 grand if you wanted all the nice goodies on it from the factory. And nowadays you can pick one of these up for about 7,000 bucks with a couple of miles on them.
So one of the best parts about owning a high-powered sport bike is their exhaust notes that they make, and the R1 is no exception. Let's hear how this beast sounds. But you don't have to give that up if you choose something more traditional like the VFR. Let's take a listen to how this beast sounds.
All right, so we've been talking a lot about specs and look and feel, but how do they actually ride? We got to get them out on the road and shake them down, see if there really is a big difference on the street between these two bikes.
Alrighty, Spite, now we're cruising through some of these dusty twisties here on some hill country roads. And I gotta say, the first thing I noticed about the R1 is just how telepathic it is going down the road. It's so easy to guide this thing into a corner and keep it online. How does the VFR feel in comparison?
Yeah, I mean, having ridden that R1 out on these roads before, I know exactly what you mean. And the VFR couldn't really feel any more different. Honestly, I have to sit here and guide this bike through a turn the way that I want it to. Once it's online, it holds its line fine, but it's not that kind of look where you want to go where you want to go kind of feel. You really have to know and give it some input, and then the bike kind of does it. Also, it flicks in just a little bit slower, it stands up a little bit slower. You know, it's a street bike, you know?
How does it feel with the weight going around these corners?
Well, like I said earlier, you can definitely feel that weight. It's not so bad, but it does make it a little less nimble to chuck around, and it just, you know, you feel that lack of acceleration due to the weight. I feel like at 104 horsepower, it should be making a little bit more and accelerating a little bit harder, but it doesn't want to get up and go nearly as fast as that R1 does.
Yeah, I mean, this R1, I pick any stretch of straight here and I'm all of a sudden at the next corner in the supersonic type of speed. It's pretty incredible. But it comes at a cost, right? So I'm sure as you know, we'll be done at these twisty roads here and I'll get on the highway and kind of wish I was on something a little bit more comfortable like that VFR for sure.
Yeah, on a highway, this thing it's at home, you know? It likes to just sit and cruise, pick a, 70-ish miles an hour, and just sit upright, hold the bar with one hand, and just go.
Now, one thing I will give to the R1 in its favor is that it's, we joke about it, is like a bit like a giant scooter. I mean, these gears are so long, I can just chill in second gear for pretty much any of our local twisty roads and never really have to shift out of it or down a gear or anything at all. Whereas I'm sure the VFR is a little bit more work to ride around, huh?
Yeah, I do have to be winding it through the gears, and the crazy thing about this bike is also due to its VTEC in there. If you really want to be in the power band, you got to be moving around quite a bit just to keep it north of 7,000 RPM.
And speaking of power band, I mean, look at this thing.
Yeah, there's just no way I can keep up with you. Just, nope, you're gone.
Insane.
And I mean, obviously you're a more talented rider than I am, but,
just more experience, not more talented.
Yeah.
I've just spent a lot of time on track.
I think that even though I'm just a 100% street biased rider, you really can't push that R1 to the limit and really leave me behind unless you're really going. And I think that's the moral of the story here, is even though they're leagues apart on the street, speed limits make all equal.
You have to ride very irresponsibly to even sense what this bike can do. And I'm not comfortable doing that on the street personally. I'll have a little bit of fun through these corners, but it's got so much more to give. It's just crazy. Whereas I feel like the VFR, once you're hustling through some turns, it makes you feel like you're using a good 50-60% of it,
Oh yeah, once you, especially with that VTEC, and you really hear that transition, it's kind of exhilarating actually.
Yeah, the VTEC on that bike is super cool.
You can you really get to feel like you're pushing it without actually pushing it. This is, I think, where we're going to see the biggest night and day difference right here.
Yeah, something tells me that we're about to show the world that the next
that's a real boy right there. Did you see that real boy?
That big old tri-glide, huh?
This slip-on, though, it does sound better than the stock R1.
It's a pretty mean exhaust sound, yeah.
SC Project, fine Italian stuff. But yeah, I cannot wait. Like, let's rig it in the VFR's favor.
All right.
I'll be in like third gear. You take fourth, probably.
Well, we'll have to wait a little bit because I think that's a cop. No, it's not. Just somebody who wants to look like a cop.
Yep.
And yeah, I'll do fourth or fifth, and we'll see what it looks like.
All right, I think we're good.
Yeah. Need to get out here a little bit. Okay, so let me start clicking up through these gears. So you want me in fourth?
Yeah, all right. If you're in fourth and I'm in second, it should feel pretty good.
All right.
All right,
You ready?
3, 2, 1. Oh, we're getting into a curved corner here. Let's find a better straight spot.
Yeah, we'll go up further ahead. I gotta really wait going at 40 in fourth gear for the power band to kick in on this bike.
Why don't you do third, I do second?
All right.
That'll be a little bit less rigged in my favor.
Yeah. And then we'll do like a real honest to God one. We're in the same gear.
Yeah.
Just so people at home know. All right, we got a nice clear straight here.
Yeah, let's slow her down just a little bit.
Third gear?
I'm in second right now, so I'll be able to hit my power band pretty good.
All right.
Whenever you're ready.
Yep.
3, 2, 1. There you go.
What'd that look like from your end?
I looked down and I saw you in the rear view mirror. I looked back up, you weren't in the rear view mirror, and then I looked back up and you were gone.
Yeah, I didn't even get to red line.
And that's the thing about these bikes, is just the power is just more on tap in a bike like this than in like that.
Yeah.
However, if we rig it in the R1's favor,
man. Yeah, let's show the folks at home. So we'll do second gear once we get a little bit straighter here. Second gear going maybe like 40-ish.
Okay.
All right, you ready?
Yep.
3, 2, 1.
Goodbye.
Woo!
This is not even worth it.
So hopefully the folks at home can see that is a big difference.
Yeah, no,
In
you
a
were
matter
just
of
gone.
in a matter of seconds, I pulled like 2 bus lengths on you. Now I'm wearing this dang dual sport helmet. I get into a race tuck and I go blind. A little dangerous.
Yeah, I'd say riding around a 200 horsepower squid missile completely blind at damn near triple digit speeds could be a little bit tough.
That's a little difficult, yeah.
So obviously the R1 is just beyond, it's a whole nother world in terms of performance. Yet if what you want is you want to look and there you go. If you want to look and feel cool, you don't necessarily need to be on a 200 horsepower just bananas balls out motorcycle. I'm still on a fully fared sport bike here. I'm cruising down, I'm feeling cool on it, and it can make a really cool sound. You know, so if you want that perceived feeling of coolness, you don't need to shell out $20,000 to do it. Although I got to imagine back there you're feeling pretty dang cool.
I think once my right wrist twists a little bit and I hear this crossplane 4 howling away, I do feel pretty awesome. But it is at a bit of a cost, you know, like as cool as I feel, I am pretty damn uncomfortable riding this thing.
And, you know, the VFR is a hot motorcycle. You know, it sits at around 220 degrees most of the time. That R1 is just boiling.
Yeah, this R1 is a toasty bike, no doubt about it.
Variety is the spice of life, but I don't know, I'm still gonna take my little Interceptor here over a big bad R1.
I think the Interceptor and bikes kind of like it. You know, I'm thinking like the Tuono is one of the bikes I always come back to. It's like it looks cool, it goes like stink, it sounds awesome, but it's much more livable than something like the R1. There's lots of flavors out there, so if you guys are thinking about, you know, you want that sport bike lifestyle, there's lots of very different subtle flavors of them. I think the VFR offers a ton. It sounds so awesome. I think it's one of the cheapest entry points to the V4 lifestyle for sure. So guys, I think that's gonna wrap up our comparison for today. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you on the next one.
See you later.
Well, howdy, partner. How's it going? Now this video's over, but I'll tell you what, you click on this one right over here, you can keep watching yourself some Yammin' Noob. And if y'all didn't know, we're based out of Austin, Texas, so click on that video, you might check out something cool.